Hello, folks, and welcome back to the Average Movie Review Podcast. I just finished watching Peacemaker episode 7, Keith in the Night, and I have to say, I'm triggered. I'm actually floored. I'm astonished. I had to take a minute to really just take it all in and what I witnessed. And this is spoilers, massive spoilers ahead, of course. I have to say this was a really good episode. Honestly, I think. Whew, I don't even know where to begin. To be quite honest, um, I'm not even sure. Oh my god, I'm sorry. I'm burping like crazy here. This was a really good episode. That's all I'm gonna say. This was a really good episode. This was actually phenomenal. Um, us getting a little bit more deep dive into the Nazi world, what's going on, all the history and everything, where they're holding the people of color and everything, all of that stuff. Um, Vigilante kind of finding out more and more about the Sons of Liberty and things like that. Uh, John, or I guess Chris, kind of finding his way through. I think for me, the highlight of the episode um, comes up to the part where you know both Keith and his dad, they find Chris, and then they tell him, if you want to live, you take him back. And you can tell like the dad is a little off, especially in the way that he talks to Keith, and the way he talked to Economos and whatnot, and how he sounds like. And you know what kind of, I guess, gave us the hint that maybe this dad isn't as bad as he potentially could be, is when he said that he saw a version of himself, which I assume is Chris's dad, a couple of years ago, and he said this man was cruel. He comes from a world of like hate, and it's crazy how like they think that our world is full of hate, but we think that their world is full of hate. It's just like a different perspective, I guess, right? So you can kind of see there's a glimpse of hope in him, because he can also tell that Chris's dad in the in the current universe or whatever, um, is a bit of an asshole, more so, and like you could tell, like he could already sense the cruelty from him. Um, Moving forward, when they come back to the house, and then he gives his, he talks about like how he's going to let them go. He just needs to know who's there, everything, all of that. And he tells them never come back. And he believes Chris. He believes Chris to the fact where he says that, I don't think this guy killed him on purpose. He tells Keith, he's like, I don't think he killed him on purpose. I think he actually genuinely did it by accident. It happens. And he looks at his brother and he tells him, he's like, your brother wasn't even a great guy. Like, like I love the kid, but he wasn't even that great of a guy. And like, it's not that serious that he died. I'm like, that's kind of crazy. But like, he's like, he was never a kind person, like, so it's, the world didn't lose anything in the sense of, you know, him dying. And he kind of said it in a very nice way so that it wouldn't hurt Keith's feelings. And then, Amelia calls him a Nazi, and then he kind of goes off on this little spiel, right? Like, he says that he's like, I'm not like them. I'm not that person, like I try at my best and I to fight all these injustices as much as I can. And, like I can't, there are some things that I can't control, but what I can control, I do control. Like he fights these monsters, bad men, whatever you want to call them. He does whatever he can, but he can't save everyone. And, it kind of puts you in a very huge dilemma as a person who's watching this, is like you kind of understand where he's coming from, but you also think to yourself, like, you're a superhero, like you should be able to kind of stand up to these injustices. Like if somebody at like Vigilante, who kind of is like a psychopath technically, can like put his things aside and like try to fight for those who can't fight, like what is stopping you, right? Like what, your excuse isn't good enough, in the sense of like, I can't control these things and I have to do what I can, right? And he tells him, he's like, I've done everything that I can and I try my best, but I tried to raise these kids to be better, like, when he found out Keith was chasing ads, he said, why would you do that? Like I didn't, like that's not what you're supposed to do, and he didn't want his children to grow up being like Nazis, haters and stuff. And it's a crazy thing to think about, because you're kind of also like, wow, like this guy is technically a Nazi, but he's not. And then like, like you also want to feel bad for him, but you also kind of look at him and be like, well, you should be doing something more, I guess, in that sense. And then Vigilante, as per usual, comes in and kills him. I have no idea why they did that, but they did it. And I was like, oh, God damn it, this is crazy. And then, there's a big fight between Keith and John and everything. Or Keith and Chris. Sorry, I keep calling him John Cena. Keith and Chris. And uh, you know, Keith is beating the shit out of Chris, and he's like, "Why did you come into my world? You ruined our lives. You ruined everything." Blah blah blah. His father is dead in the fucking kitchen, and he's just traumatized, right? And again, that traumatized Chris as well, even more, and that triggered him so much, right, to the point where he almost, I think, he was ready to die on the by the hands of his brother. He didn't care whether his brother killed him or not. He was ready to go, and everybody comes back, and then they grab him. They grab Keith and they pull him back, and they're about to kill him and everything. And Chris lets out this scream, and it it's a weird scream, but I don't know why. But if you've ever been triggered by something, or if you've ever felt, like you're remembering a bad memory, a repressive memory, or you're screaming in your dreams and stuff, like that's the type of scream you kind of give, right? That you're reliving something that you don't want to relive, and like he does it so well, right? It triggered me as a person too. Like I felt it, and then he came in and he's just like, "What the hell's wrong with all of us? What the hell's wrong with you guys? Like just leave him alone, stop, stop." And then he came to the conclusion that at the end of it, it's not his world, it's not their world, it's not anyone else's world. Everyone else's world is perfect the way it is. It's him. He's the issue. And we get a flashback of like all the bad things he's done leading up to this point, and all the people that he's killed and whatnot, and all of that stuff. And he realizes, he's like, I'm the issue. I'm the problem. It's nobody else. Like, had I not shown up here, like he comes to that conclusion, and it's a sad moment. It's a sad moment of realization. That poor guy, like he started off in the Suicide Squad as somebody that you kind of hated. He comes into Peacemaker season 1, and you kind of fall in love with him a little bit, and then you does Peacemaker 2, and you're falling even more in love with him, and now you just feel terrible about the fact that he's going through all of this. And then you have the ending where they all fight, and sorry, they're all escaping and whatnot, and then Emilia has to kill Keith, but unfortunately doesn't get to, which kind of sucks. We don't even know if Vidge from that universe survives. I don't think he does, which would suck a lot because he's actually hilarious. So he's there, and then they're running away, whatever, and then he closes down the portal, and the next thing he just walks out of Vidge's house, and he gives the portal to Argus, and he tells Argus, like, this is what you want, and they all came after me. And then Judo Master was also a highlight too. It was fun to see that little interaction between him and Ads in the beginning while they're playing Scrabble and all of that stuff. It was cute, it was funny, but it was like, it was nice. And he also agrees that he came back and he's giving up himself willingly, so like just arrest him, right? Like there's nothing else. Like he could have easily went like, no, that's not true, blah blah blah, but he also realized that maybe Chris isn't a bad guy after all, and he's doing the right thing, so we should let him. And and then they arrest him, and he takes him back, and it's kind of sad to see. And you see Vidge ready to pull out his gun again as well to shoot up for Chris. Man's a ride or died right to the end. And I don't know, I just I felt like this was a hard episode to watch. It was especially that scene where he lets out the scream and he realizes, and he gets so triggered, and he remembers his brother dying and whatnot. Is very hard, and John Cena encapsulates it so well. Like like kudos to that man again, phenomenal job. This one, I expected it to be a little bit more action packed, but I didn't expect it to be more emotional, and it turned out to be like more emotional than it was action packed. Like, there was some good action here and there, but it was more emotional, and it was like a more of a crazier kind of feeling towards it. Like, it wasn't something that I expected from this episode. What I was expecting was like them coming in and killing a bunch of Nazis and whatnot, but to give us a different type of perspective from that end, where that old logic where it's like, I was just following orders, or I was just doing whatever I can. But I think in this case, the Blue Dragon, like, I know he might have been just doing the best he can, but he could have done more, And I think that's what we always expect, especially for a man of him, his stature, having all that power and whatnot. He kind of still didn't do enough. Whereas Vigilante is like, again, the Vigilante from the Nazi world is like fighting for his life every day, trying to help these people and trying to like stop these injustices. Um, but yeah, episode 7, phenomenal. I absolutely loved it. I am super excited for the finale next week. I don't know what to expect. I'm assuming Keith will come to this earth and probably fuck some people up and get to John, and maybe John will have to kill him, or see Chris. Sorry, Chris will have to kill him again, and that will be even more traumatic. Or maybe he'll be able to forgive him. I don't know. Um, I don't even know Rick Flag what the hell he's gonna do if he's gonna fuck up some more shit as well. So like, I don't think any part of the trailer has shown the ending of this season, so this will probably be all brand new footage. Because like, I'm thinking about the trailer and I'm looking back at the trailers and I'm like, this has nothing. None of this was part of the trailer. Like, all of this was part of the trailer, and I think we've seen everything that the trailer had shown. I don't think there's anything we missed. So I'm excited to see where they go. I'm excited to see how they ended, and also like how they're going to connect it to the next Superman movie, because I know James said that this will lead directly into Man of Tomorrow. So I'm excited. I'm super excited. I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know, and catch me on the next one. Have a wonderful day, guys.